Hello, everyone, and good evening, and welcome to the RotoWire Soccer Show. Today, I'm Jack Burkart, and today we are going to be talking about the showdown slate on Friday between Nottingham Forest and Fulham. So the Premier League is back after a little bit of a hiatus due to the Queen's death, and so it's kind of like a funky setup. We have an unusual two-game Friday slate, so Adam Zadroik has the article there, and this is going to be our little bit of content just for that showdown slate coming up. So this slate is going to be featuring two different teams who were just promoted recently and kind of in different places right now. So we're going to have Nottingham Forest. They're going to be the home team. And Nottingham Forest have a lot of talent, and they've been very active in the transfer market. I think they've made over 15 transfers so far. So they have some good players, but their team seems to be lacking a little bit of cohesion. They recently gave up 3 goals to Bournemouth after achieving a lead right there. So not everything is going perfect for Nottingham despite all of their transfer spending. And Fulham has been playing a little better, albeit they're going to be on the road. So, I mean, the star man so far this season for Fulham has been Mitrovic. I think he scored a goal per game, and he scored a goal in his last 4 games. So he's someone who's going to be really popular and someone to look at. So just going down through everything right here. So the first thing I always like to do when we're looking at these showdown slots, so we're looking at the RotoWire cheat sheet right here. So sign up for the soccer trial, 10-day free trial, very worth it. Everything that you need to succeed in these types of settings. And I don't even think you have to put down a credit card. So it's a great deal. Come join us. But the first thing that we'll do is we'll just take a quick look at the odds report. So like we said, Nottingham Forest, they're going to be the home team. That said, it looks like they're a bit of a slight underdog, 33% chance to win. Fulham is a slight favorite. So, I mean, it's small numbers, but this is basically a toss-up right here. But the total for this game is looking pretty good for a Premier League game. I know we've been coming off the Champions League where we're no strangers to 3.5-point totals, but this 2.8 total is pretty predictive that we're going to be expecting at least something like maybe a 1-1 draw or 2-1 on either side, perhaps something like a 2-0. So we should be kind of looking for a few goals in this type of matchup down here. So I mentioned Mitrovic, and maybe we'll get that later. That's probably going to be the biggest question, at least for me, in the showdown slate when it comes to tournaments, maybe even cash games. Mitrovic has like a sneaky floor just based on shots. But let's talk about first, so the main question is going to be centered around, do we play Mitrovic? But let's kind of just start talking about some cash game type builds first as we go in. So when we're playing cash games on DraftKings, we're going to be looking for who has the set pieces, who's going to be really active in crosses, who's going to be creating a lot of chances. So what immediately stuck out to me, so if I'm playing cash games, is I definitely want to be playing here Morgan Gibbs-White, and I definitely want to be playing Neko Williams. I think those two guys are going to be extremely popular in cash games and tournaments alike. And I'm going to think that most lineups, it's only like a 39-person single entry double up this week. So, I mean, not a huge cash slate, but we're going to see most people playing Morgan Gibbs-White and Neko Williams. And I expect that they're probably going to be popular captain choices as well. I mean, we'll talk about other options, but that's sort of my initial inclination based on our projected starting lineups right here. So the main thing that we want to keep in mind of here is that Neko Williams started the season. He was completely on set pieces for Nottingham Forest. But since the transfer of Morgan Gibbs-White, it looks like he's on the set pieces. So I think that makes Morgan Gibbs-White just a really solid captain choice. But Neko Williams, his role is just so valuable for fantasy. He is just constantly attacking down the wing and sending in crosses. So even without set pieces, he's actually sported a really good floor lately. I think he's been scoring at least 12 DK points in his last 3 starts. So the lack of, I'm not really going to be concerned with this 10.6K price tag on Neko Williams. So I'm definitely going to want to be playing him in my cash games. And I think Morgan Gibbs-White, he definitely makes sense. And both of these guys make sense as a captain. Who are you going to pick? I don't really know. It's a really difficult decision just based purely on floor points. They're going to be projecting very similarly. So if we kind of head down here, I always like to sort by floor in the cheat sheet just where we're going. So this is based on all of the games this season, and this includes some Gibbs-White performances, I think, on Wolves. But it looks like Neko Williams has a much higher floor, but this kind of includes games where he did have the set pieces. I think they're going to project really similarly. And, maybe Nottingham Forest keeps a clean sheet. I doubt it. they gave up 3 goals to Bournemouth. But that would be a nice little boost that goes Neko Williams' way. But for me, Morgan Gibbs-White maybe has like a slightly better chance of getting that goal and assist. So I think if we look over at the goal scorer odds right here, where is Gibbs-White right here? Yeah, Gibbs-White. That's not hateful. Plus 390, so 20% to score a goal. In my cash game lineup, if I have to pick between 2 guys, I'd rather have the guy who could explode and really bail me out if I need that goal. So it's very close. We'll have to see when lineups get out, just based on the projection. But I think I'm kind of leaning a bit towards Morgan Gibbs-White right there. So those guys are going to be definite staples in your cash game lineups. But as we kind of move on a little bit, there's some other names that kind of stick out who are getting pretty solid floors right here. So the name that sticks out to me on the Fulham side is definitely Andreas Pereira. So he's only 8.4K, which is still pretty cheap given the fact that, he is definitely the majority, if not monopoly, set piece taker. I think he's taken all but like 5 corners. He's got 21 set pieces this season. So that's going to make him a really attractive cash game option. One thing that is maybe a little bit concerning about Andreas is that he has been subbed off a little bit early lately. So against Tottenham in their most recent match, he was subbed off at the 60th minute. And against Brighton, he was subbed off at the 78th minute. So that's definitely going to be something that might steer some people off. He's not a must, but he's still been getting you about 8 DraftKings points in that role. And he still goes forward. He's going to take a shot or 2 on goal. He's live to get an assist. So I think he's someone who's pretty easy to include in a cash game lineup as well. And then moving down, kind of the other like floor player, I think there's like merely like 4 guys who stick out really well for their floors. That's going to be Renan Lodi. So he was another one of these 20,000 recent signings by Nottingham Forest right here. And Lodi's looked pretty good so far. He's looked pretty good so far for Nottingham Forest. I mean, looking here, so he started against Manchester City, and, he did well. He got 5 DraftKings points. In the Bournemouth game, he got 8.5 DraftKings points. Looks like he pinged in 7 crosses there. So he's going to be operating on the left wing opposite of Neko Williams. And I think it's going to be a really popular combination to play both of these fullbacks. And those are the guys who really stick out, kind of our premium options for floors. So my first inclination when I'm building one of these cash game lineups is, well, how can I fit all of these guys in? And you definitely can, but it becomes a little bit gross. So you're going to find out if you just, put Gibbs-White at the captain slot. Let's put in Neko Williams. Let's put in Andreas Pereira. Let's put in Renan Lodi. You're going to run into about like a 4,000 average salary, maybe a little bit less. So we're going to want to be thinking about what sort of punt plays are in the slate to make us able to afford all of these floors. And if I scroll up, so up here we have our projected starting 11s. So Kurzawa was recently acquired for Fulham from PSG. So he didn't play for PSG last year. But if you look at his stats the year before, he was averaging about 3 crosses per 90 minutes. And the price is right on Kurzawa this time. He's only going to cost you 4.4K. So if Kurzawa is starting ahead of Anthony Robinson is 800 more expensive, then I think he definitely makes these builds where you captain a Gibbs-White and then you just sort of jam in all the floor points. I think he makes these builds work quite well. I mean, you're just going to have to play a center back, but you have the 5 best floors on the slate right there. So I was just tinkering around a little bit. So I looked at some constructions right here where you don't necessarily have to play Andreas Pereira. So maybe you're a little bit worried about Andreas's rotation right there, and maybe you just don't want to play like Jor Worrall or one of these really cheap center backs right there. I just really not quite sure what we're getting when we do that, though. I mean, if you scroll down, all right, maybe Willian is starting, but maybe this causes Pereira to split set pieces with Willian. So you probably don't want to play either of them in cash games in that setting. Do you really want to be paying $7,200 for Kenny Tete? I don't really think so. In cash games, I don't want to play D. Cordova-Reid. I don't want to play Jesse Lingard. I mean, oftentimes in these double ups, we see guys like Saramek, they're putting out goalkeepers, even away goalkeepers in cash games. So I guess you could play Bernd Leno. That would sort of be a bit of a hedge if you don't play Mitrovic in cash games. But I don't know. I think my inclination is sure you could get into these middle range guys like Palhinha. I don't know, but you're kind of running into. I'm not sure how much you gain in floor by dropping down from Pereira by doing that. So you definitely don't have to play him. And there are some mid range guys, but it's a little bit shaky, at least in cash games in this slate. And then, of course, you can sort of consider, well, maybe you want a captain like a Renan Lodi or something like this. But again, I'm not really feeling how much we're gaining in that situation. So, as always, things are going to depend on the starting 11s. But just based on what we have projected here, I think you're going to be trying to get these four guys at Neko Williams, Morgan Gibbs-White, Renan Lodi, and Andreas Pereira. Now, I did attempt to build a cash game lineup with Mitrovic in it, and it was ugly. So what I did is I just said, okay, let's say I make Gibbs-White my captain, get all the set pieces, and then I throw in Mitrovic, and then I throw in Neko Williams. Well, then you're left just punting 4 straight spots. I think you have an average salary of like less than 4,000. So I don't think that's very cash viable. So again, I think I'm worried that my opponents are going to be playing in these head-to-heads and these double-ups. They might be playing Mitrovic, but I really just don't think you have to go there. Even if he has like a little bit of a floor, he gets like 6 points of shots or something like this. I mean, right now, his anytime goal scoring odds are plus 115, which puts him at about 46%. So, I mean, it's pretty close. Maybe if it was minus 120, we'd have to start making him a priority. But I don't really think that we have to make him a priority in our cash games, although it's certainly viable. I think sort of the main thing to take away from this sort of cash game discourse is that there's kind of 2 different types of lineup constructions. So if you captain one of these floor players, right, and you want to just jam in 4 of them, then our opponents are going to be punting twice. Or perhaps they're going to be playing 2 6K guys in the flex spots and then punting once if they're only going to play 3 of the floor guys and say they fade Renan Lodi or they fade Pereira. And then we can kind of look at lineups where, all right, well, let's captain Gibbs-White, and then I'll throw in Mitrovic. So this might be a popular thing to do in tournaments, say. Well, if they're also going to be playing Neko Williams, our opponents are going to be punting quite a lot. So I think in tournaments, so let's kind of change our head over to tournaments. That's enough cash game talk. It's time for sort of our galaxy brains start spitting out these hot takes right here so that we can try to take down this GPP. So yeah, this week, I think the main GPP is 600 entries. So we don't have to get too crazy with our thoughts, but we definitely do want to get different from the field. We want to get different from sort of this like a chalky cash game type of construction right here. So I think something that's probably going to be very popular. So I don't know how owned Mitrovic is going to be in tournaments. Is it going to be like 40? Is it going to be 50? Is it going to be 60? He's very expensive, but I don't think the field is really going to be afraid to put him in there, especially when he kind of stands above the rest. He's got goal scoring odds plus 115. Brennan Johnson is the next closest we project to start plus 250. So I expect him to be really popular. Now, one thing that you can always do with Mitrovic is, well, okay, let's just go for that clean sheet or something like that. So you put in Mitrovic, try to get the assist. Maybe the assist comes from Pereira. That's not so bad. And then you punch in Bernd Leno. Hopefully Kurzawa starts. And then if you kind of build a lineup like this, it's going to look like, okay, maybe I'm going to be punting a little bit twice. So in a 600 person GPP, do I want to be doing that? Like, how many people are going to be thinking the same as us? They're going to say, okay, let's go for the 1-0 or the 2-0 clean sheet win. You're going to have this combination of Mitrovic, Leno, and one of the Fulham fullbacks. And then if you play a set piece taker, you're sort of just doing a coin flip against, 5-10%. That could be about like 60 versus 30 people on these pure punt plays. So it really depends how popular it is. That's something we should probably take a look at, export the CSV at the end and see how popular that type of construction is. But it might be worth getting just a little bit tastefully weird if we're going to be going for that sort of lineup. So why not give a little bit of a shout out right here to the man? He's on the thumbnail. He's the man with the cap, legendary goalkeeper, Dean Henderson. Why not in a Mitrovic captain spot, whether we're going for the Fulham clean sheet or not, we can consider putting Dean Henderson on the other side. Now, normally this is sort of like a bad idea, right? It's like, oh, well, those two are negatively correlated. If Mitrovic scores a hat trick, Dean Henderson is going to, score in the negatives. But I think sort of in these ceiling games that Mitrovic might have, he could get as high as 5 shots on goal, even, take 8 shots total. This is a stat line that he's posted earlier. And so if Mitrovic posts that kind of stat line and he just scores 1 goal, well, that leaves 4 saves for Dean Henderson. So you have Dean Henderson on 6 points right there. And then maybe a couple other people take a shot. And, you just paid, 5.6K for Dean Henderson for an 8-point floor. That's going to be pretty nice. And I think if you're going to be playing Mitrovic, people are going to be a little bit hesitant to be playing Dean Henderson on the other side. So I definitely think that is going to be one route that we can sort of take in these GPPs, especially if we're looking to get a little bit different from the field when we're captaining our Mitrovic. And then, if we scroll through these lineups, there's a few just, casually interesting plays that we can put in for tournaments. So, depending on who starts for Fulham, is William going to start? We have Daniel James. He only costs 6K, and I think he's about plus 300 to score. He's someone that you can play in tournaments, although I'm not sure that his playing time is very guaranteed. That's totally an option. I don't really want to be playing Bobby D. Cordova-Reed. I don't want to pay the 7.2K for Kenny Chete. So, if you're not going to be captaining Mitrovic or Pereira, maybe Daniel James is someone that you can throw in there. And at 6K, well, Daniel James is going to sort of change your price structure up a lot. You'll be able to play 3 of the very expensive players. So one reason I like playing maybe some of these mid-priced guys, they can score a goal, so they can keep up with the guys that can get a lot of floor points. And it unlocks different player combinations that those who are going to be sort of captaining Gibbs White, those who are going to be captaining, Neko Williams. You can kind of keep pace. So you can still have those really nice floor guys, but have that slightly different captain. The ownership on someone at captain like Daniel James, what's that going to be? Like at most 8% or something like this, maybe a little higher after the video. Hopefully not. We'll see. I don't know how much people actually listen, but that's definitely something that's in play there. I really just kind of looking at lineups that you construct. I really like the texture of the lineups. You can afford Mitrovic if you captain a guy like Daniel James, and then you can fill in the floor guys from there. And I think that's like a decent way to approach tournaments this slate. So, looking there, kind of one guy that we can do that with Fulham, that's Daniel James. And if we turn our attention to the Nottingham Forest side, I'd also be very interested in taking Jesse Lingard for a spin for the same reason. So I have down right here, Lingard is only 6.2K. So everything that I just said applies to him equally as well. If you put him in the captain slot, that's enough salary that you can sort of get different player combinations of guys with really good floors. You can play Mitrovic and get that goal if he scores it, but you can still kind of build like a solid lineup that's not punting too much, but still kind of has that upside that we want to sort of go for that first place right there. So that's another tactic that I'm going to be fairly interested in if I'm not going to be, if I'm going to get off these sort of chalky captain options. Those are 2 guys who I'm going to have my eye on, and I'm going to want to be, you're going to just want to be aware of rotation with these teams. Both of these teams have acquired a lot of players recently, and things could change a little bit. So it's going to be fairly important to adapt. Who else have we really been missing? Been talking pretty fast, but we've talked about Gibbs White, Lingard, Neko Williams, D. Cordova-Reed. I guess one person I haven't mentioned is Brennan Johnson, and that's sort of like a similar play to a Jesse Lingard. So you can definitely play a Brennan Johnson, especially at plus 250. Yeah, why not? That's just GPPs. We're going to go for the goals. We're going to go for the assists. He's going to be up there. Pretty popular. Just pair him with Neko Williams or Renan Lodi or both. And just, hope that you get that goal and assist combination right there. Some other guys. Who else have we not talked about? So I guess we can consider some of these midfielders right here. So Harrison Reed took an odd set piece. He's kind of one of these salary saving options. I guess you can play him in cash if he's that last guy and you just, that's how much salary you have. But there's really not much of a floor there. At most, he's going to be taking 1 corner. He's a risk to get a yellow card. He's not going to be getting forward too much. So that's someone I would avoid in tournaments. Paulinho is somewhat interesting. I think he has 1 goal in league play so far. He has a little bit of more penchant to shoot. So if I go down here and check, what's Paulinho doing right here? He's been averaging a shot a game. I mean, he could easily accidentally get a goal in there, depending on how the price structure works out right there. But again, he's not someone who's a priority. He's mostly been scoring his fantasy points through racking up, defensive peripheral points, which that's not something that I'm particularly good at projecting. And I don't think it's something that we want to rely on. And then I guess some midfielders for Nottingham Forest. Again, most of these teams are going to be wanting to kind of play through their wingers and play through their more attacking-minded players. But Ryan Yates is somehow at plus 500 to score, which isn't horrible. And I do believe, let me check, I think he scored a goal in a cup game recently. Yes, he scored against Grimsby Town. So that's certainly an option. I don't think many people are going to be playing Ryan Yates. So if he fits, you can throw him in there. Who knows? Maybe he gets a goal in there. But yeah, not someone I would captain. So yeah, I think that kind of goes through most of our GPP strategies. We're missing one very important discussion, of course. And yeah, if you're not going on the chalk guys, let's maybe consider some of these mid-price guys like James and Lingard. If we're playing Mitrovic in the captain, we need to be conscious to get a little bit different. So, I mean, it is possible to play Dean Henderson opposite side of a Mitrovic captain in this slate, I think. I don't think that's such a bad tactic. But of course, the thing that I have my eyes on, so as a card-carrying member of the Goalkeeper Captains Union, Adam and I both have that in common, is we have these nice clean sheet odds right here. So Fulham is still 25% to keep a clean sheet, and Nottingham Forest is 24% to keep a clean sheet. And Dean Henderson has had some ridiculous performances at goalkeeper. I think we had one slate that was week 2 against Villa where he saved a penalty, and he was just like, if you captain him, you were just winning all of your GPPs in that sort of case. And considering that they're the home team, so he's kind of got that name brand recognition. He's been very outwardly good for Nottingham Forest. I think he's definitely going to see some looks at captain, and he's super easy to play, right? So you can just throw in, I'll throw in my Dean Henderson, and then you just play Lodi, and then you play Neko Williams. You'd maybe play Jesse Lingard or Brendan Johnson or Gibbs White, try to get that goal, and then you just fill the rest in. So that's definitely an option, but I'm kind of worried as I kind of fill in, everyone's going to have the same idea. So what I'm more interested in, we're going to betray our thumbnail just a little bit. Why not put a little bit of Bernd Leno at the captain right here? So one thing that we could possibly imagine, maybe Mitrovic scores a very early goal, but doesn't do much the other game. Maybe there's an own goal. Maybe the goal doesn't have an assist. So this kind of situation would involve a Fulham player not being the optimal captain. But if Fulham somehow sneak by an early goal, and then they somehow get a little defensive late in the game, well, then our Nottingham Forest fullbacks, Renan Lodi and Neko Williams, those guys are going to be bombing forward, getting a ton of crosses. Morgan Gibbs White is going to be very active in the open play right there. So that's sort of a little bit of niche sort of game script that could happen if Fulham get that early goal. So maybe they retreat, they're a little bit defensive, and then Bernd Leno just gets bombarded the whole game. The home crowd for Nottingham is trying to get them going. If I'm captaining a goalkeeper, I think you're going to see me captaining Bernd Leno just for that reason right there. But, I mean, not many people are going to be willing to captain the goalkeeper. That's usually about 2 or 4% right there. But I don't know, maybe between these two games, that might be in the cards. But yeah, you heard it here. Captain Bernd Leno. That is going to be the official goalkeeper captaining advice right here. So let's see here. I mean, what have we really talked about? Is there anything we've missed? No, I think it's actually pretty good. So, I mean, it's basically a toss-up. Nottingham Forest at home. In cash games, you're going to want to play Neko Williams, Pereira, Lodi, Morgan, Gibbs White. You're probably going to want to play at least 3 of those guys. Probably don't play Mitrovic, but I'm a little terrified of it. Keep an eye out for the lineups. And then, we have these mid-price captain options and GPPs between, Jesse Lingard and Daniel James. And, of course, your GPP winning ticket. Win Fulham, win 1-0. Based on an own goal for Nottingham Forest, facing 8 shots on goal, a ton of shots from Neko Williams, Renan Lodi, and Morgan Gibbs White. Bernd Leno will be your optimal captain. Well, I think that's been about 25 minutes. So thank you all for hanging out with us. Best wishes. Good luck this weekend. We hope that you get some winners, and we'll see you hopefully this weekend, and we'll see you in the upcoming weeks as well. So thank you everyone, and have a great night.